Welcome back to the Spoonie and Caregiver Live podcast with me, your host, Jordan Banderas. And before we get started, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes of the podcast. And let's go ahead and get into today's episode, shall we? Now, it has been brought to my attention that I have never shared how I met my wife, and I thought actually that it might be interesting to tell this story, especially because she's my Spoonie as well, and we have gone through so much. Now, the way that I met my wife is very similar to a lot of stories now out there. I met my wife online around May of 2014 on a dating website. I had joined this particular website only a few months before, but I had been unsuccessful in finding the right person to connect with. And all of a sudden, boom! Somewhere in Salt Lake City, Katie, my future wife at the time, was driving with her parents to her grandmother's house for Easter dinner in 2014. And all of a sudden decides that after 7 years of being single, she will try a dating website where the other party has to pay to join. This is how she puts it. Now, she did this assuming that the member will have a job because of the membership fee. Now, that doesn't mean that I didn't have a job at the time. This unfortunately means that she had a string of bad luck and was ready to try again. I don't know how I found her profile online one day and decided to message her. She messaged me back after a while and we began talking from there. We then decided to go out on what will be our first date. This was when I learned that this woman would change who I was forever. Maybe even give me a run for my money. Now, because of the way that I am, when I arrived at for our first date, I texted her that I was parked outside her front door. And if you know Katie, here is when I got a first taste, or my first taste of her personality. I received a text back saying that she will not come out to my car until I come and knock on her door like a proper date and will introduce myself. Now, I had never done that before. Up to this point in my dating life, I had never done that, so I was like, I'm not gonna do it. At first, I didn't think she was serious though, and I wrote back and said, "Where is this, the 1920s? She really dug her heels in then. I almost left. And this is where it gets funny from this point on. Because I almost left. Literally, I was so close to leaving, but something made me get out of the car and go down to that door that day for some reason. And I'm glad I did. Well, but I'm also happy there wasn't an axe murder behind the door. And if you know Kitty, you know what I mean. I was literally, like I said, seconds away from driving away. But then at the bottom of those stairs, at that apartment basement, was my future wife and her dog. That fluffy dog has to be included in the story because she was there from the beginning. Now, Katie and I went to the movies on our first date, and it didn't go so well with the first meeting. She was already peeved about the door thing and had made up her mind that it wasn't going to work out. But she went anyways, as she puts it, or as she tells it. I also told her to use her Wi-Fi because she kept bragging about it. So I was like, well, maybe you should use it. That's how I am. And that's when I knew I had gone too far with my humor. I At that point I knew I was like, oops, I crossed the line because of the face that she gave me afterwards. Now, she agreed to a second date after a week or two. We texted every day a good morning and a good night text. My English was terrible at the time, and I became a sounding board for Katie. She would tell me about her day, and I would listen, and quite frankly, I loved it. On the second date, Katie was as blunt as she always is. She had been hurt so often and told me that she had no time for bullshit. That's pretty much what she said. She lay she laid her head in my lap and started to tell me a bit about her health history. I was stunned at that point, but I was also intrigued. I had never met a survivor before. Katie explained that she had survived a stroke and blood clots in her brain at 27. Now, just so you know, the mortality rate of her condition is 70%. She also explained that the disease wasn't studied because people didn't make it through it. So she's lucky to be alive. She said that she had the most severe migraines that people get, and the doctors didn't know what to do to help her. She was also suffering from pretty bad depression and anxiety at the time, but was working a lot. And I mean a lot. Workaholic status at this point. And I left that night in disbelief. I was like, how can somebody survive a life like that, Because she was suffering. I saw it from day one. So I went home and started researching her conditions. I had never met anyone like this, and I was fascinated and loved to do the research. She was also one of the kindest people I had ever met. She's just so nurturing. And over the next few months, we saw each other a few times, but texted every day. Always a good morning and a good night text. We almost became each other's sounding boards. She would listen to the little English I knew, and I would read the pages of text she would send about her days at work and home life. Eventually, and this is a story that I have shared before, things became very toxic where I was living with my mom. And at that point, somehow Katie mentioned that she was moving and had a room for rent. One morning, I was so mad at my mom that I texted Katie asking her if I could be her roommate. She said yes. So, we lived as roommates for 3 weeks. That's all. One night, she was standing at the stove, or by the stove, and I was standing by the fridge, I remember it, and I said to her, "Do you want to be my girlfriend?" She said, "Am I not already?" I kindly replied, "Well, it is proper to ask, right? At least you want to hear it." And then a few days later, I was sitting at work. I got to thinking about it, and I sent Katie a text and asked her what she thought about getting married. Her response was, "To who?" I was, "To me, of course, duh." I came home from work that night, and the ring that she wanted was taped to the front door. We would call this another one of Katie's pastimes. She likes to research jewelry and things that she likes. I couldn't help but laugh. And then we were married 3 weeks later in a small ceremony in a bridge. We are currently headed towards our 7 years of marriage in December. Now, Katie changed my world. She told me what was happening with her. She opened up about her situation, and because she opened up to me, I didn't care. When I got married with Katie, I knew that something like this probably was supposed to happen, but I never knew the magnitude of it. So this is why it's very important to be open about your condition or your situation, because the other person has to make a choice if they want to stay and help you from the beginning, or if they say it's too much for them. In my case, I knew what I was getting into. So that's why I don't complain, because I knew this was going to be for me. Somehow I knew it, and I don't regret it. And I also want to dedicate this to Katie, because she changed my world. She introduced me to a new life. She opened her arms wide for me. She has been a daily teacher to me. She has brought me farther than I could have ever come in the last 7 years. And if you know Katie, I'm sure she has touched your life in some way as well. If she hasn't, you should give her a chance, because she's that special. And that's pretty much what I wanted to talk on today's episode. I wanted to share a little bit about how me and my wife met, and how she was honest from the beginning about being ill, and how if your spoonie opens up to you like that, you shouldn't really complain, because you really know what's going to happen. You should know what's going to happen, or at least like I did. Research the conditions, and then understand that some conditions could get worse, like in my case. But that's pretty much what I wanted to talk on today's episode. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for all the support. I really, really appreciate it. We're growing, and I really, really like this. I like where we're taking the podcast, all thanks to your feedback. And don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. That's the only way that we're growing, and it's all thanks to you. And also, if you want to share your story, don't forget to send it to us at the Spoonie and Caregiver Life at gmail.com, or you can post it on Facebook on our community. And don't forget to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And I'll leave you like always. Always take care of yourself, and have a great day.